Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Solio Analytics podcast. And today we are so excited. We're so excited because we're launching Solio Analytics. We've got the guy who's going to show us everything that entails in Solio Analytics. We're going to do a demo. But before I get there, Jonny, how are you doing? Excited?
I'm very excited. Yes, we've been working all the last, well, I was going to say all last week on this, but all last 18 months on this tool really. And today's the day that it's all coming live. So yeah, doing really well. How are you about you, Pras?
All good, all good. Excited about the new season, but yeah, it's all about Solio. I'm seeing all these Discord notifications well into the night. James, how much have you slept in the last week?
Not as much as I should, but I'm feeling great. I'm feeling pumped and excited and so ready to launch. Because as Jonny said, this has been a long time in the making, and we're so excited to share this tool with all of you. It's really cool.
Love it. And you'll remember last season, international break, you and I podded on the wire, and there were all these aspects of risk, all these aspects of how do you model uncertainty, and I can just see all of that here, and hopefully we will bring to you guys over the next 45 minutes to an hour what Solio Analytics is exactly. James, but before we do that, the people of the podcast, the analytics community know you really well, but people of the podcast who are new to this, hearing about you for the first time, give us a little bit of a background on FPL and how Solio Analytics came about.
Absolutely, yeah, sure. So, I'm James. I've been playing FPL for quite a long time, but really only got into the analytics scene around kind of just before COVID. And I had never even heard of, a solver or optimization in a fantasy football context. To be fair, not many people had back then. And then around the start of COVID, I made friends with Sertalp, who I guess many of you probably have heard of. He introduced me to FPL optimization. I guess we were quite early adopters, and we spent, I guess, as a major hobby, all of the years of our lives since then developing tools for FPL optimization and FPL analytics. So yeah, it's come a long way since the early days. We were really just trying to find any way of generating decisions from statistics or whatever at the start. But since then, it's evolved a long way. There are different people now building models with market data, which is something that Solio is doing, and using kind of more advanced optimization models. So yeah, it's really exciting to show how far analytics has come in the last few years, and I'm excited to be sharing it all with you.
Yeah, and we've talked about this in the past, Jonny. We did it in the first video we did, where optimization and all of these things sound scary, but ultimately everyone is doing it. It's just that they're doing it in their heads. Like, when they're setting up their gameweek 1 team, they're thinking about optimization. What is optimization? You have a budget and you need to optimize or basically maximize the points that you can get. And it's not only day one, it's about scenarios in the future. How do you manage your transfers in that way? So, optimization as such is something people are doing already, right?
Yeah, I think it's not like optimization solvers for FPL existed in the wild and we found them and they sort of solved all the problems. Like They exist because people like James and people like Sertalp and people in the analytics community have thought about how to solve the problem of picking 15 players for your starting team and managing your transfers and all the stuff that we were doing anyway, and trying to apply a bit more data and rigor and automating some of it and simulations and all these kind of things. So it's really sort of enhancing that thought process. And these optimization solvers are written by people in the community who've gone, okay, how can we tackle this problem? How do I write the rules for the optimization solver to solve it this way? And that's what optimization solvers are for in various contexts. It's just that we've gone, okay, this can be applied to the problem of choosing my fantasy football lineup.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, really where optimization originated was a kind of a desire to automate like the boring parts of FPL. Like what I really enjoy focusing on is stuff like risk analysis and projections, and predicting minutes and stuff like that. And all of that kind of feeds into the optimization model and it outputs some decisions that you can make. So kind of, automating that process and being able to kind of free yourself to focus on more interesting and more worthwhile things is really the biggest value in optimization.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's bringing your own insights and thoughts into these solutions and problem solving methods rather than telling you what to do. It's all about like giving you a tool that can turbocharge your thought process and your decision making rather than replacing it, as some people seem to say.
So a reminder that the tool will be live later today. So today is the 5th of August. So around evening time, 8 p.m. is the plan. By the time you're listening to it, it might already be live. So this will be the plan. Touch wood, everything goes well. Let's not keep the people waiting too long in terms of how it looks and how it feels. But just to give you an idea what we'll go through, James is going to take us through a tour. We're going to do a live demo of what the tool looks like. How do you navigate it? How do you get started? What are the market-based aspects to it and how you can edit your own beliefs into the model? So I'm excited. James, take over. Show us what it's all about.
Great. Yeah. I can't wait to. So first of all, before I start kind of diving into the details, you can see the interface here. But at first, I'm going to give a kind of a brief introduction to how this tool came about and what we're trying to achieve with it, because it's kind of been in the works for a long time. So as I mentioned, Sertalp and I have been kind of making optimization models and trying to find new ways of creating FPL decisions for most of the last, 5 years or so. And especially, we've kind of come up with some interesting new ideas, especially, I guess, in two areas. One of them is like risk analysis, and the other one is planning under uncertainty. And these are the kind of two of the core principles that drive how our tool works. So initially, when we started building something, we were just thinking, what we really want to do is just build the perfect solver that everyone can use, and kind of build a nice user interface on top of that. But when we kind of started, when Solio Analytics started, actually about 18 months ago, we realized that we were kind of going about it from the wrong direction. And what we actually need to be doing is building the planner first, right? The planner really has to sit at the core of every FPL planning process. And the optimization is really kind of contingent on the planner that you have underneath. So most of the last 18 months hasn't been working on, optimization models or kind of nerdy stuff like that. It's actually been building a really, really usable user interface that can kind of act as the basis for all of this more advanced and complex planning. So, yeah, without further ado, I'll start to kind of dive into the interface.
I was going to say, actually, just these two aspects, we will get into it further in terms of how do you model this stuff. And again, there's a lot of words which once we go through it, people will understand what we're talking about, relative risk, what we're talking about, all the things that you're talking about, optimization. These are essentially just your plans, your paths. So go for it, James.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so the first thing I want to focus on will probably be the most familiar to anyone who's ever used an FPL tool or to anyone who's ever played FPL, which is on the right-hand side here. We've got the lineup for our team. Currently, we're recording this in the preseason, so this is just a kind of a default game week 1 lineup. And the first thing you might notice if you look at the right-hand side is at the bottom here, we have something that's kind of different to what other FPL planners have, or it's kind of a unique feature, which is what's called our decision summary. So what this shows is kind of a distribution of points that we model this team to score based on the projection model, which I'll talk about in a bit. So as you can see right now, my team has, an average of about 65 points. There's a good chance, that I'll score maybe less than 40 or some chance that I'll score more than 90 points, but very little chance that I'll score, less than 30 points and very little chance that I'll score more than 100. So already you can kind of see what this, what this risk analysis means based on this distribution. And this risk analysis responds instantly to any changes that I make to my lineup. So, for example, I can make a substitution. Let's say I wanted to substitute Salah off. You can see that the distribution kind of changes and moves, and instantly my outcome becomes a lot worse. So if we move Salah back on, it reverts to how it was. We can also change captaincy by clicking on a player and clicking this captain button that comes up in this pop-up. So I can change my captain to Bruno Fernandes, and as you can see, the distribution shifts over to the left a bit. We can also make transfers through this pop-up. So as you can see, when you click on a player, you're faced with another list of players, and you can click on one of these players very easily to make a transfer. So for example, I can transfer out Bruno Fernandes and bring in Wirtz. And this is quite interesting because it moves the distribution to the right, and also it widens the distribution quite a lot, because according to our model, Wirtz is kind of a slightly more volatile player than Fernandes in terms of his absolute outcome. And what I mean by absolute outcome is it is what it says on the tin. It's the number of points that you're expecting your team to score. But really, this is if we're thinking about risk in an FPL context, absolute outcome is not really the most interesting way of thinking about risk. What you really want to do, actually, is think about risk with respect to other FPL managers. So this is something that you can do with the Solio Analytics Planner. So up here, we have this toggle that says absolute, and if I click it, we can change to relative. Right now, because we're recording this a few hours before launch, we haven't loaded in all the data yet for the kind of other manager decisions, but I'll leave that as something that you can find when you log into the tool and use it. Is when you switch the relative view, you can see how your decisions kind of stack up against the decisions that we're predicting other FPL managers will make. So this kind of allows you to perform all sorts of really interesting analysis. For example, you'll see that players who are quite risky in an absolute level, like Salah, for example, his points outcome is very volatile. He could score 24 points one game week and 3 points the next. That's entirely possible. But because we expect that most people maybe will start with Salah doesn't provide a lot of relative risk. In fact, what provides relative risk is not owning Salah. So that's so this is kind of risk analysis, and this is something that you can perform very, very easily using the Solio planner. So I'll just quickly take you through the rest of what's on the right hand side here. We've got this kind of chip selection because I've got game week 1 selected. I can only play bench boost or triple captain. We can also select what we're showing here. So right now we're in points, but we can also switch to showing price. Or, as I mentioned earlier, we're predicting other managers' ownership. So we can, if we want, switch to effective ownership. Here you can also see the number of free transfers that you have for the decision. And you can see the amount of money in the bank that you're projected to have. You can also see this actions toolbar where you can kind of reset the lineup to the default order and default captaincy. And you can cancel transfers, which I'm not going to do because it will just remove all of my players and I'll have to bring them all in again.
Because it's game week 1.
That's right. Yeah, because it's game week 1.
Got it.
It will just empty all of my
your actual squad at the minute
lineup.
is empty. Like everyone's team is empty. No one has a team. You're picking these players. So this is that's right. If you went to game week 2 and transferred Salah to, I don't know, Saka, and then clicked undo, then it would undo that one transfer. And you can see it's highlighted as well. The player Saka is highlighted with a purple line, just to show that this is your transfer in, and this is your change.
That's right. Yeah. So hopefully you can see that with the planner, all of these kind of primitive, planning actions within a decision are super easy to do. Like making transfers and making substitutions is really fast, and you can kind of experiment with different things at whatever velocity you want, which is something that we're quite excited by. It's taken a lot of work to really get the user experience as good as it is now.
We wanted to make sure that we were providing value as a planner in and of itself. If even if you don't use all the optimization powerful tools that we have behind it, if you're not an analytics manager, you just want to come in and play around and use it as a lineup viewer to plan a few paths, plan a few branches. It works that way too. Obviously, we hope you'll use the more powerful tools we've built on top of that. But the idea is that yes, this is kind of the things that you're kind of used to, but we've added as much flexibility and usability as we can.
And your team is going to be linked at all times, correct, James? Like when you come in, like maybe take one step back. Where does the user go? What do they do as, putting their FPL ID? Maybe if we can go that one step back and just explaining people, how do you actually get onto this?
Sure, that's a really, really good idea. So to get to this tool, you can access it at this URL here, fpl.solioanalytics.com. And let me just open up another window so that I can show you exactly what the login process looks like. So when you enter, you're shown this kind of interface where you can enter your team ID. I'll just enter a team ID there, start planning. And then I log in. And when I log in, it takes me straight to this page. So there's no waiting around. You'll be faced with an empty team at the moment, and you can kind of start building your team from there.
And there's a fantastic tour, by the way, which James isn't telling you about, which you'll be surprised with as soon as you put in your FPL ID, which is so intuitive as well. It's going to show you a lot of the things that James is talking about in terms of how do you look at it, how do you navigate. So look out for that when you first go to solioanalytics.com. And the FPL ID will be saved, right? Going forward, when I will log in, it's just basically there, and you can it just updates real time.
That's right. Yeah. So actually, as we'll get on to later, everything that I'm doing right now saves. I never have to kind of recreate plans or rebuild something on one device or another tab. It's all synced all the time. And that's also something that has taken us a lot of work and we're incredibly proud of. So I'll also quickly mention a couple of other things that you can see on this lineup. You can see we've got these tiny icons. If I hover over them, then you can see what they mean. This little A badge there means the player's in the top 5% for assist points. This means the same for clean sheets, and this one means the same for goals.
So top 5 across all players in the game.
That's right. Yeah, top 5% over all of the players that you can select. So this is the lineup page, and now I will move on to projections. So as you can see, we've got this kind of navigator at the top here. I can click on projections there, and this takes us to a big grid of numbers. As you can see, these numbers are actually the same under game week 1 as they were in the previous tab. So Salah, for example, is about 8.6. This is the average number of points that we're projecting Salah to score for this current game week, and same with all of the other players. We can, move through these other tabs. You can see the amount of minutes each player might score. We're expecting each player to score. We can see their price as well, and we can also search for players here. I can search for Salah, and Salah will pop up. We can run filters, filter by price. All of this is very fast and very easy to do. But there's also much more that you can do with this projections page than just view these things. Because another thing that we really, really wanted to make possible with this tool is to make everything kind of on a deep level as customizable and editable as possible. We have, by default here, a really, really strong projection model that Rob T has been leading the charge on, and Sertalp's also been working really, really hard on getting it as good as possible. And we're massively proud of the projection model. But if we also want to enable our users to make their own projection model, because people have all sorts of different beliefs, and you might not agree with our projection model, and that's fine. And we want to enable you to really input your beliefs as they are and build your own plan using your beliefs. So that's also what this projections page is used for. If I click on one of these numbers, then at the bottom you can see this kind of this little tab here that I can use to edit all of the parameters that go into this projection for Salah. So, for example, I can drag this goals slider. You can see where it was to start off with. Let's say I'm expecting, I think Salah will do even better than projected against Bournemouth.
He's really good, isn't he? Yeah.
He is really good, Salah. Yeah, believe it or not, Salah is really good. And we can also drag his clean sheets around like that. On the left here, you can see this kind of weird polygon shape. What you might notice is we don't have a slider for minutes. This is because we kind of prefer to think of minutes as a slightly more complicated distribution than just goals and assists. For example, players might, sub off late, and or sub on really early. And all of these things kind of interact with the amount of minutes that the player plays, but also with their probability of playing 60 minutes, which is really important in FPL because it gets you another bonus point and it also gets you clean sheets points. So we've designed this kind of minutes editor here with as much flexibility in mind as possible. For example, I can move, let's say I think Salah's really likely to get subbed off by 90 minutes. I can move this down, say he's got like a 20% chance of playing like the full match. But I think he's likely to get subbed off not before the 70th minute. So what I can do is drag this little circle out to the right to 70 minutes. And then all of the projections in this tool and all of the kind of views and decisions reflect this edited minutes distribution instantly. You can actually see this number at the top. If I press this button to reset the projection, you can see it resets straight away. There's no kind of waiting for anything to calculate. It's all really fast, and the whole plan kind of updates in real time according to the things that you're editing.
You can see with the clean sheets as well that actually because the clean sheets are linked to the team, not to the player. Then as you move the clean sheets, you'll see Virgil van Dijk is actually moving up this table because Liverpool's clean sheets are improving. So it's coherent. So suddenly you get all these Liverpool defenders up at the top if we say that Bournemouth cannot possibly score. So that's all tied together.
That's right.
So we've got
so it's all linked then.
Yeah,
when you edit one, it's all linked together.
Yeah. We've got more plans to evolve on that in terms of the goals and the assists stuff. That's still a little bit more. Like I've moved this player's goals up because we talked with Rob last week. If you want to check out more about the model, I'll plug our own video from last week. But obviously if Salah's goals are going up, then either Liverpool's goals are going up or his teammates are going down. And at the minute, that's still, you are moving Salah's goals only. But the intention is that as we build more features onto this, then Salah's goals going up will change Liverpool's goals and Bournemouth's clean sheet percentage and so on and so on. So it will all sort of try and tie together, but the clean sheets are coherent at the minute. The bonus points are kind of a function of these goals and assists and clean sheets, so that will update as you move these around too.
Yep, and I think to make it practical for people, like it sounds scary that I have to edit all this. There's going to be a default which is going to be updated regularly anyway, so you don't have to do it. But I think the practical way where people are a little bit skeptical about models, that they see Wirtz on all corners over preseason and they say, okay, Wirtz is going to have way more assist share or way more assists than these models are predicting because they're not watching preseason. Well, the first answer is the markets are, so a lot of it will be baked in. But the second answer is if you still think it's not the case, let's go to Wirtz. Let's basically increase a little bit. I mean, we don't want to overcorrect either and say, look, Wirtz could have more assists per 90 than what the model predicts, and then let's see where it goes, because then you can compare him to Bruno Fernandes, who's a similar price, and you think Bruno's going to play deep, so maybe his goal output will be slightly lower. You can do that slightly and just see the effects, even if you don't want to actually build all of that into your projections, which sounds scary.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So let me give you an example, because right now, if I'm kind of going to one of these cells and then editing his assist per 90 and then going to the next one, editing his assist per 90, that's a bit tedious. And we can do it in a slightly easier way than that. If we click on Wirtz's name, then we see this other thing pop up at the bottom. And this is where you can kind of edit all of the beliefs for this player at the same time across the whole kind of set of game weeks that we have in the horizon. So I can click on this drop down, go to his assists, and then let's move them up a bit. So he's going up from about 0.4 assists per 90 to about, let's just go down to about 0.5 or so. And you can see this is reflected. His kind of average points have gone up. If we push it all the way up, then he becomes, much better than Bruno Fernandes.
Careful.
But on the kind of, yeah, I know. Yeah, he's not. But yeah, we've really tried very hard to make all of these kind of ways of inputting your beliefs about how players are going to perform and how they're going to perform within their team and how teams are going to perform as easy as possible. And yeah, we're very proud of it.
You can edit the minutes in the same way. That's one of the drop downs. If you just say, this maybe is an example that we're going to do now. If you say that, we're going to test a scenario where Salah gets injured, then I can just drop his minutes down to 0 and apply all the way across and now he's not playing. So it's not only inputting your beliefs. I may be jumping ahead a little bit here, but I think we can go with this. Inputting your beliefs. You can also test kind of what if scenarios. So maybe I want to create a scenario where I want to see what happens if Wirtz is a lot better than I think he is and Bruno isn't, and then I can test that against the scenario where it's the defaults from our model, or maybe it's a scenario where Bruno's even better and Wirtz is even worse, and can I test against all these different factors whether I believe them to be likely specifically or not. Same with the minutes as well. You can say like what if João Pedro is playing 90 minutes up front for Chelsea? What if he's benched? That kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Don't get too far ahead of yourself, Jonny, because we're about to chat a lot more about information and scenarios. In fact, why not move on to that right now? Although, no, actually, one thing first. On this projections page, you'll see that as well as editing players' projections, we can also edit fixture projections, and this is something else that we've made as easy to do as possible. So obviously, it's pre-season. There's not actually any fixture uncertainty, but later on in the season, there certainly will be fixture uncertainty. And we've made it as easy as possible to change which fixtures are in which game weeks. So let's say that I wanted to, let's say that there's doubt about the readiness of Everton's new stadium, and this fixture might actually be rescheduled to game week 7 or something. All I have to do is just drag it over to game week 7, drop it, and that is instantly reflected in all of the projections. You can see that NDI has a blank game week in game week 2 now, and a double game week in game week 7, and I can edit both of his fixture projections from there. And I can easily just reset that. And yeah, we're back to normal. So you'll notice that what we're not doing here is setting probabilities of projections. The reason why we've designed it this way is because we think it's much more useful to plan over scenarios that could actually happen. If you're planning over a scenario where a fixture is half in this game week and half in that game week, then the insights that you're generating from that information are not actually going to be usable because there's no scenario. It's impossible that the fixture will be half in that game week and half in that game week. It's much more useful to have game weeks fixtures discrete inside game weeks. I hope that makes sense.
It's certainly very unlikely that they play half a game here and half a game there.
Yeah, you'd love to see it though. Can you imagine if they scheduled a match to start exactly like 50 minutes before a game week deadline?
Yeah, we'd have to redo this fixture table.
We would have to rebuild the entire tool.
Sadly, yes. But yes,
let's hope that doesn't happen.
And the intention is that later on in the season, we'll be allowing you to set the probabilities of the scenarios. So I'll be inputting data in terms of like which combinations we think are most likely and the likelihood of each of those, rather than splitting these fixtures across the different weeks. But obviously, more useful later on in the season. But if you want to see what happens if Everton Brighton moves to game week 7, go ahead. Easy to do. Why not?
That's right.
Okay, so James, let's talk about the market-based aspect of the model. We had Rob T come in last week. We talked about a lot of these aspects of how could you trust the markets, how are they built, how they go into pricing. So tell us about how Solio incorporates market odds.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, the first thing is that you should definitely, if you haven't seen it already, you should definitely watch last week's episode with Rob T, because he goes into way more detail than I can, and it was just a fantastically interesting episode to listen to. But the way that we're doing it is, there's all sorts of kind of markets that have some predictive value for goals. So especially we're looking at kind of spread markets, and we're kind of what we're doing kind of in the back end is seeing how, spread markets are priced, seeing how kind of player level goals are priced, and then converting that into a kind of a goal share for each player within their team. And then alongside that, we're also kind of building team projections. So we're saying the markets kind of expect this team to score this many goals in this game week based on, the kind of inferred strength of each team. And these kind of team level insights and player level insights combine to get these final player level numbers. So I hope that gives a kind of a brief overview on how the market data works.
And they update real time, right? Because the markets update real time.
That's right. Yeah. So everything in this tool updates in real time. I'll give you an example of this a bit later on, but sometimes when you're using this tool, you'll notice that projections get updated, and it just it instantly changes. And it's actually kind of amazing to see that happen in real time. Maybe your bench order changes or something like that, and all of that happens without you having to click a refresh button or anything. Everything is in real time, and it's always live. So
and it will be linked to your team, which is basically the point, right? Once you've put your team ID in, your team is there. Let's say we're in game week 5. You're debating between Salah and Bruno Fernandes captaincy. That's just an example. And so that expected points, how they change, is going to be so cool to see. So how do you change the market odds into these expected points?
Yeah, so we're kind of constantly pulling from, we're collecting data from a few different sources, and we're collecting this data on regular intervals. And when we notice that the data has changed, what we do is we just kind of send this message to the browser saying, oh, this data's changed, and your browser reacts to that change, and everything is synced live. So yeah, that's kind of on a very high level how the projection model works. But please do watch last week's episode with Rob, because he went into fantastic detail about this, and it's really, really interesting stuff. So yeah, we're very excited to have it out in the public for people to see. So next thing I want to talk about, we've kind of been on this right hand side for a while, and this left hand side's kind of been looming here, and you might be not sure what to think of it. I want to kind of zoom out a bit and talk about the way that we're thinking about modeling FPL as a problem, because our take on this is a bit different to other kind of FPL models, and really any other FPL tool that you can use. So it requires a bit of explanation. So really, traditionally, in kind of FPL analytics, and actually especially with these kind of optimization models that Sertalp and I have been obsessed with building over the last 5 years, FPL is modeled as what's called a deterministic problem. And what this means is that the information that you have is fixed. So, the information that I have in game week 1 is kind of the same as the information that I have in game week 8. And it's kind of a simple model. Everything's one path, and that's why it's called deterministic, because there's kind of only one path of information. But in real life, you can have, the way that information works is really you have many paths. You don't know what's going to happen next, but many things can happen next. There might even be infinite paths that you can look forwards into. But the way that we traditionally model FPL as a problem is it's almost as if you're standing at the end of a path looking backwards, which kind of means that you're not able to get a real picture of the uncertainty in a plan. And that's a big problem in FPL management, because uncertainty is a big thing to consider. Not planning for uncertainty properly can lead to disaster. But we've designed this tool to model uncertainty in a completely new and really, really interesting way. To be a bit technical, you don't need to know this, but the kind of style of planning that we're using is called stochastic planning. And that basically means planning over multiple scenarios at the same time. And it's really, really interesting, as we'll get to in a second. But first of all, I'll give you a quick tour of what you're actually looking at on the left-hand side here. So first of all, these kind of rounded square boxes, these are your decisions. So we have a decision at game week 1. We can navigate from here. So we can go through the game weeks very easily. I can go back to game week 1. And here we have what's called a scenario. So this is this set of projections. All of these projections in my plan that I just showed you earlier are contained within this little circle here. And this is kind of how we're, with this tool, we're modeling information as a kind of a living, breathing part of the tool in exactly the same way as decisions are. Because the way that information kind of filters through your plan and behaves is really just as interesting and useful as the way that decisions do. So that's really something that we're trying very hard to reflect through the user interface. You can see down here, there's a few buttons. So when I click on a decision, I can press create. So let me try that. What that does is it creates what's called a new path. So as you can see, this is kind of creating a new default path, which is completely empty. I can start, populating this path with players, but I'm not going to do that right now. I'm instead going to delete that path that I just created and instead copy this path. So now we have kind of two sets of decisions. And what we can do here is we can perform some kind of interesting analysis. So what happens if, say, in this plan we have Wirtz, and in this plan we have Bruno Fernandes. So you can see in this one is Wirtz, in this one is Bruno Fernandes. If we zoom in a bit, then you can see a more detailed view where all of the players are listed. And then if we go to the end of the two paths, you can see exactly how that decision impacts the whole path. So as you can see, this kind of bottom plan that has Bruno Fernandes is on our default projections expected to do quite a lot better than the Wirtz path. It's also, as I mentioned earlier, Wirtz is a bit more volatile than Bruno Fernandes. So the distribution of points with the Bruno Fernandes path is ever so slightly narrower. But what I really think this brings to attention, this kind of modeled set of outcomes, is just how much your outcomes can vary with the same group of players. Like, it's totally feasible that with this same group of players, I'm going to get 630 points or 830. It's actually possible that my outcome can deviate by 200 points just over 12 game weeks, and that kind of gets you thinking about just how much risk and luck and all of these things really matter for FPL. They're really, really important with regards to planning, and viewing the whole distribution instead of just this one central point can give you loads and loads of insights about how your plan is and about how it kind of influences your outcomes. So I've been clicking between these decisions. You'll have noticed these kind of buttons appear after, and this is what we use to create new information. So I can click that. It has this kind of auto-generated football-y name. This doesn't mean anything. All that it means is now these projections are kind of contained within this little circle here. And if I make a change to Salah's projected goals inside this information, that's not going to be reflected in the path down here. So you can see Salah in this decision is projected 8.3 points. In this one, he's projected only 6.6. And what this allows you to do some really exciting stuff and some really kind of fine-grained analysis, as we'll get into in a minute. But this kind of gives you an overview of what these things on the left-hand side are. So we've got decisions and we've got information. And these are kind of the two building blocks of an FPL plan in the Solio planner. So what I'm going to show you next is how this is actually useful, because you kind of, you've seen this stuff and I'm kind of pressing buttons and it doesn't mean a whole lot. But what we can do is plan over different sets of information. So let's say, for example, just as a random example, I mean, we're currently, before game week 1, in some ways, there's not actually as much uncertainty as there is later on in the season, because we don't, have that much uncertainty right now over people's fitness. We also don't have a lot of uncertainty around fixtures. But to give you a random example, let's say Salah might be injured and he might not be. So in this top scenario, I'm going to call this, I can click on it to rename it. Let's say Salah is injured. And then let's call this one Salah not injured. And in this scenario, I can move Salah, his minutes down, and apply that to all the game weeks. And in this scenario, we'll keep them as possible. So what do these kind of evaluations now represent? The top one is if Salah is injured, and the bottom one is if Salah is not injured. And the real question we need to ask is, okay, let's say we don't know if Salah might get injured after game week 1. Obviously, we don't know that. But if there's, let me adjust the percentage chance. Let's say if there's a 10% chance that Salah gets injured after game week 1. Then what is the best decision that I can make in game week 1 over both of those two scenarios? And we have a button for this. You'll see this optimize button pop up. And this, if I press it, kind of starts a process in the background that solves and optimizes these decisions over both of these two outcomes. So it will find for you the best game week 1 decision over the scenario where Salah is injured and the scenario where Salah is not injured.
What I love about this as well is that it's updating as it's finding paths and plans. You can see the kind of like interim solutions it's found. Obviously, right at the start, they're a bit crazy. It was making sort of 15 transfers in game week 2, but actually, as it's loading, you can see almost what is it thinking, and they don't think. They're robots, but. It's interesting to kind of see as it evolves the solutions it's trying to find.
No, I love this process, in terms of just being able to plan for the unknown, and it's not just saying which one is better, because of course if Salah didn't get injured, that would be better for your team effectively on a central distribution. But to plan for a scenario, so there are known unknowns and there are unknown unknowns. Anyone can get injured and it's hard to plan for it. But there are lots of known unknowns as well. Like there could be another one where, let's say, Wirtz takes over penalties. Like yesterday when Salah missed, there were some news articles on Wirtz will take the next penalty or something. And if you wanted to do that, you could do exactly the same math, and you can say there is a node that you can create where Salah's goals per 90 come down, Wirtz's go up, simply accounting for the fact that he could take penalties going forward. What chance is that? 5%, 10%, and just do this and have it affect what your game week 1 decision should be based on that. That's incredible.
It's
the analogy that you told to me, James, basically when we started thinking about how this is going to come about is that it's like if you almost think of it like a 2-player game of like, okay, I make a decision and then FPL gives me some information, not FPL, but the world, something happens and then I make a decision and back and forth. And actually it's kind of this okay, what decision might I make? What information might I get? I can set those up, set some probabilities. What decision might I make in response to that information? Then what information might I get? And so on. And this back and forth. And being able to set up these scenarios and plan in this way is something that I find really interesting to play around with.
Yeah, I mean, that is exactly how information works in real life, right? You do something and then stuff happens, and then you do something else and then stuff happens. And we're really, really proud to have actually made a planner that supports the nature of things. So you can see this solve has already finished, even though we're solving over 12 game weeks and over 2 scenarios, which is kind of an order of magnitude more complex than solving over 1 scenario. You can see that this is finished and we're previewing the solution right now. And actually, this hasn't changed things. So even though there's a chance Salah might get injured, this kind of initial team that I think we also had to begin with is pretty robust to that, because we can take a hit in game week 2 and transfer Salah and Bowen out for Eze and Haaland, and we can change our structure. Or if he doesn't stay injured, we can kind of go with a more conventional plan, carry
on as planned. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So we can choose to accept or reject that solution. We can accept that, and now this saves to our plan.
So making this practical, if we change the probability of Salah getting injured to, let's say, 90%, then your game week 1 team will probably not be with Salah, right? So that's what we're trying to say, that if you believe that there is a higher chance that Salah gets injured, then you will avoid the hit in the first place. And then if you solve for it, then you just maybe will not even end up with Salah in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So let's set them to being equally likely and see what happens, because that should be quite interesting. Yeah, because this is really what it's all about. Is when you don't know what's going to happen, but there are all of these things that you know are somewhat likely to happen, but you just want to know, what can I do now that sets me up the best over all of these scenarios? And that's something that our tool enables you to do. But it's not just about like injuries, or even it's not just about fixtures. You can also solve like this with regards to decisions. So I'll just click that copy button. What that's done is it's copied out this new branch for us to play around with. And from this branch, I will delete that information that we had. So it's just like default. And let me remove this branch as well. And I'll ask you a question, Jonny. What's something that you're kind of, there's some uncertainty around, or that you want to analyze robustly?
Yeah, so I think there's been a lot of talk about when people are going to play their chips. And a lot of the analysis sometimes is kind of like, this is the chip plan I'm going to go with, and this is the one I'm going to follow. And maybe if it's the first few game weeks and you're doing something like a bench boost 1, wildcard 2, then okay, you can lock that in. You're only picking your team for this upcoming game week. And in game week 2, you've got some new information and you're starting again. Or maybe you're wildcarding in 3 or 4 and you put your free hit into something like that. Then you can kind of plan for the first few weeks. But if you're trying to plan for something a bit longer term, so I know people have looked at sort of free hit 3 and free hit 6 and maybe trying to wildcard in 13 or somewhere around there, then there's a lot more information you're going to have before you get to free hit 3. So I might get to a point where my game week 2 team is a mess. And if I free hit in 3, then I haven't got time to fix it. And I get back to game week 4 and I have to wildcard suddenly that I hadn't planned to. So it'd be nice to be able to pick a team for game week 1, knowing that I might play the free hit in 3, I might play the free hit in 6, I might even not free hit. I might save it for a rainy day, save it for later. We might find out that Everton's game is postponed in game week 2, and we don't know where it's going. So I might not free hit at all. So I can set up these plans like this, as you're doing for me, and try and find a game week 1 and 2 path that lets me then decide, once I get to game week 3, am I going to free hit? Am I going to save it? And I haven't pigeonholed myself into one of these plans. Sometimes you do this analysis and you find that the team is actually quite weak if you're trying to kind of hedge yourself across these plans, but sometimes you can find a really good set of solutions that lets me be really flexible to a chip strategy without having to think too much about it. So yes, can I have that solution, please? Tell me the answer.
So while you were talking there, I've set up this kind of branch where we have one branch in game week 3 where we're free hitting in game week 3, one branch where we're free hitting in game week 6, and one branch where we're not free hitting at all. And what the solver is going to do is find a game week 1 decision that's robust across each of these 3 paths. So as you were talking there, also this result from the kind of Salah injury experiment became ready. And this is really interesting because it shows just how good Salah is in game week 1, is that even though there's a 50% chance that we're going to have to hit him out the next game week, it's still worth having him in. So that, I think, goes to illustrate just how good Salah is. Let's go for an even more extreme example. And let's say Salah's 90% likely to get injured and only 10% likely not to get injured, which is obviously absurd, but you can think of certain things which are, 90% and 10% likely that this would correspond to. Let's solve this again. And as you can see, I'm actually solving multiple problems at the same time. With Solio's planner, there is no limit to how many solves you can run at the same time. I can solve 10 problems at the same time. I mean, it would slow them down slightly, but ultimately it's just going to keep kind of chugging away. So this is the power of stochastic planning.
Now we're cooking.
Huh? Here we go. Haaland game week 1. That's game week 1.
But I think also it goes back to the point you made at the start in terms of actually the optimization solver giving us automating some tests in order to focus on what we want. So if we're pretty sure we want a Salah draft, and we tested it with he's 50% likely to get injured in game week 2, and it still wants to start with him, then I don't need to put much of my reasoning into thinking about, do I want a Salah or do I want a Haaland draft? And it might be that with your own projections, as you've kind of edited them in, it might be like maybe it's more likely I start with a Haaland draft because I rate him a little bit higher or something like that. But what I might take from that is, okay, I don't need to focus on whether Salah's in the draft or not. I put him in because I know I have a good route out if I need to. So I can focus on the other picks and how they fit around it. So it lets me put my focus and effort in places where it's going to be more beneficial.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it really does just allow you to plan robustly in so many different ways. And we're super excited about it. One thing that I haven't spoken about yet is, let's say that, okay, you're getting a solution, but it contains a player who you don't really like, and you want to maybe not see that player in your solutions. Let's say I really hate Bruno Fernandes, for example.
Why?
And I don't want to own him. I can go over to the settings tab. And this will kind of give us a bunch of different things that we can set, which will change how this optimization process runs. So if I search for Bruno Fernandes and I press this red button to ban him from game week 1 onwards, then when I run a solve, Bruno Fernandes will not appear in this solution. So if we go here, you can see it's generating a team without Bruno Fernandes. It's generating the best team without Bruno Fernandes. I can create another branch, and I can do some other interesting stuff with these settings. So for example, you'll see here, we've got a risk preference slider. And this is something we're super excited about, because this is an idea that we came up with a few years ago, but never figured out how to kind of package up in a way that people can use it. But if I say slide this risk preference over to 100%, that means that the scenarios that we'll generate are designed to widen the distribution as much as possible. So I can run a solve there with 100% risk preference and create another branch down here and solve this with 0% risk preference or negative 100% risk preference, which will be as safe as possible. And I'm running all of these solves all at the same time, and you know, the tool is handling all of this really, really smoothly.
My free hit solve is ready. It's out the oven.
So James, just let's talk about that risk bit, because it's really important, because a lot of people want to use the models to just see how can I play in a way that is different but not so far behind the other optimal players. You know, like I'm using terms that are popular in the X community and the FPL community, that people say, okay, there's only one way to play. I want to beat that crowd, or at least have a chance of beating them by playing slightly differently. And Jonny is one good example of doing that, where I'm not giving up too much of my expected points, but I want to play differently. So what is minus 100 and plus 100? Like, are you just basically saying I'm going to avoid high EO players, but still try to get the same expected value? And then what is minus 100?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. So what these things are so plus 100% basically means I want to absolutely fly in the face of what everyone else is doing. And I want to, you know, I still want points, but I want those points to come from players who really nobody else owns and who nobody else is likely to own. And negative 100% corresponds with exactly the opposite of that. You know, you still want points. It's not completely ignoring points, but you really want these points. You really want to cover the players who your opponents have who won't score many points. So this is kind of the most important factor with regards to risk in FPL.
Who are you comparing it against?
So when we launch, right now we're comparing it against nobody because it's a bit early to put in the data. But when we launch, we're going to be comparing this against the overall sample of FPL players. So it will be kind of who you're likely to be competing against after game week 1. And as the season progresses, we're probably going to play around with some different samples. So for example, we might see an interesting question to ask is, what is that sample of players is my mini league rivals? What decision can I make that edges kind of puts me opposed to the decisions that my mini league rivals are likely to make? And that's a really, really interesting question. And that's something that we want to support really, really soon. So as you can see, these two solves are finished. And this one at the bottom is quite a bit narrower than this one at the top. When kind of relative projections come into play, and you can see you can see your level of risk against other people, that's when you'll see some serious differences. you'll see, this one distribution is super narrow, whereas this other one where I own Haaland and nobody else owns Haaland is really, really, really wide. And that's, it's really, really fun to perform this kind of risk analysis on your lineup.
And people already do this. Like, they will, when they see this, it sounds like, okay, what are we optimizing? What is risk? But game week 37, I get this question all the time. My mini league rival is going to pick Watkins. I have to block him. So I will pick Watkins as well. When you're saying you're blocking him, you're basically going minus 100%, because you're saying, I don't want any EO exposure on your next pick, because I don't want you to have any relative variance compared to me. I will get the same exact points as you. If you're chasing, saying, okay, my mini league leader is going to get Watkins, I need to chase him, I can't pick Watkins, I'm going to go for Wissa instead, then you're plus 100 or plus 70, whatever. Then you're saying, if Watkins does well, then I'm happy to lose. But if Watkins blanks and Wissa does well, then that's the risk. So I'm just trying to make it practical in terms of how people already do this. You're just using a solver to do this for you across your whole team and across a longer term horizon.
Yeah, and the sort of the percentage slider is kind of a weighting that you're giving towards this type of approach. This sort of it's multi-objective optimization is what the technical term is, but essentially you're trying to maximize your points as well as also trying to maximize or minimize effective ownership exposure. So if Watkins is the best captain in game week 37, but he's so far away and ahead the best captain, and you just want to try and catch, a 10-20 point gap on your mini league rival, then it's probably not worth going against him because he's so far and away the best. But if he's only marginally the best, sure, you can go against him. And it's kind of trying to find that point at which you say, okay, the best solution for you to catch up here is not to go against Watkins with his double game week and his penalties and whatever. It's to go for a different defense on your free hit or something like that. So actually it's making sure that you're making a smart decision rather than just saying, this is the obvious way I can see to go against them or cover or vice versa. It allows you to find those kind of the smartest way to do that with this balance of still making sure you're maximizing your projected points as well.
That's right, yeah. And our calculations for risk, they don't only involve effective ownership that you can see in these kind of distributions. Obviously, they involve the kind of components of points, so like how many goals, how many assists the player's likely to score, stuff like that. This distribution here also involves correlation between two different players. And when you're looking at your relative risk, you're also looking at, for example, correlation between the players in your team and players who are highly owned by other people. Because if you have, say, a player who's inversely correlated with somebody who's highly owned, let's say everyone owns Man City defense, and you have a striker who's playing against Man City defense, that also contributes to risk. So all of this is contained within the calculations that we're using to kind of show you this risk distribution.
Love it. I also have this really amazing feature that I love about this, and I want you to talk about it, which is the synchronization. If you're ready to go there, it's
absolutely
fantastic. So how have you managed this?
Yeah, so as you can see, like
this is James video, just showing off now.
Yeah, this is entirely me showing off. As you've seen in this video, we've been generating some kind of complex planning structures, and you might take a lot of time to build out your own scenarios and build out your own trees. And that's obviously something that we want people to do. But, that wouldn't be very useful if you just lost everything when you refresh the page. But that doesn't mean that we have a save button. We're doing something slightly more advanced. So we're making sure that your plan is always, at all times, whenever you're online, synced to your account. What that means is I can plan on one device, and the decisions that I make on that device will sync in real time to the decisions on the other device. So let me go here and show you an example of that. So here I've got two different browsers open. These are not connected. This one on the left here is Chrome, and on the right I've got Firefox. But I'm logged in on the same account and I'm viewing the same plan. So let's say on this side, I create a new branch. And you can see instantly, this is reflected on the left-hand side. You don't have to wait around for it. I mean, the sync is absolutely live. And it's not just branches. if I go into the team and I make, changes here, like substitution, all of this is reflected instantly. So yeah, we're really, really, really excited about this feature. It makes a lot of things much, much easier.
And this
so
is
it's pretty
across
good.
devices as well. So if you have it up on your
Yeah.
phone,
Yeah,
you have
exactly.
it up on your laptop.
I don't actually have my phone on me at the moment, but if I went on my phone and
Yeah.
opened at fpl.solioanalytics.com, it would look like I'm performing magic, and I can control, my plan, because everything syncs all the time in real time, and not just your plan. All of the projections sync in real time, so you're always getting the latest projections. Everything is connected and everything syncs.
As far as I'm concerned, this is magic. I don't know how James has managed to get this to work, but yeah, it's amazing. It's so cool. It's nice just being able to swap between devices, and I'm planning on my phone on the bus on the way home, and then suddenly I can get up on my laptop as I get back, and it's all there.
Yeah, how's it so fast, James?
It's really cool. We're using a lot of really, really kind of new and advanced technology. So under the hood, we're using what's called kind of a real-time sync server. And I don't want to go into too much detail because it's obviously very, very nerdy and not what people have tuned into here. But it's kind of a layer that sits in between our application and the back end, and kind of interfaces with it all the time. And all the time, you're kind of what you're doing in the UI, so the decisions that you're making and the branches you're creating and stuff like that. Your browser is kind of chatting to the sync server, and then the sync server is chatting back and to all of the other browsers as well. So yeah, it's kind of quite new technology, actually. I think that start making it this fast wasn't really possible until fairly recently, but we're trying to leverage all of this kind of powerful technology to build something that's really, really valuable and has all of these cool features that you won't see anywhere else.
Love it. James, is there anything else you want to talk about in the demo?
One thing I can show you quickly before we head off is this little fixtures panel. People like fixtures, right? They like to see the kind of team level picture of things, which team has the easiest fixtures over the next 5 game weeks. And this is something that you can do with FPL's planner, with the Solio FPL planner. We can see, for example, that Liverpool have the best projected goal difference over the first 5 game weeks. That's not really a surprise. They've got pretty good fixtures and they're the best team in the league. You can see on attack and defense, Man United are down there in mid-table. It's a shame. It's a shame, Pras. But maybe they're
Wait till we
they're
sign Sesko. There's a Newcastle, Liverpool, and Man United fan on this podcast. We could do a whole other thing on Isak Sesko.
Oh, next
week,
yeah, let's
maybe.
not.
That's not what the demo's here for.
Carry on.
Yeah. Anyway, I think this demo has really just scratched the surface in what you can do with this tool, especially when there's kind of more uncertainty in the game. You can do some really, really mad things. You can build up some really, really interesting planning structures, and you can generate insights that are, deeper than really probably, whatever FPL solver you've used before. I mean, I've used kind of deterministic linear solvers for most of the last 5 years, and this kind of the freedom and the depth that stochastic planning provides, and the way that uncertainty is built in to the planning structure is just so powerful. And we're really, really excited to see how people play with it and how people use it.
Absolutely love it. Jonny, anything else from you?
I don't think anything specifically. I think one thing I would add, without giving too much away, is that we still have some new features that we're working on that hopefully should be out in the coming months. So we still have more ideas. There's still more stuff that we want to build into this. We alluded to a few of them earlier in terms of the effective ownership samples and giving people access to more samples. But we are also open to ideas. So if people have suggestions or requests, then they're welcome to get in touch via our email or on Twitter. This is the tool as it is now, but much like market projections, it will build and evolve and improve hopefully over time.
Yeah, I mean it's a huge labor of love. I want to shout out the rest of the team. So obviously James and Jonny are here. There's Sertout, who's been working on this from the beginning. Obviously you guys met Rob earlier. Jorgen's been behind the scenes, keeping us all organized. Chris has been critical to everything as well. So it's been a big team effort. Thank you to everybody who's been involved. I just want to remind everybody that once the tool is launched, it'll be free for the entire month of August. And as James mentioned, it is fpl.solioanalytics.com. There will be a Discord as well. If you join, there'll be a link on the platform, so you can just click on that link and join the free Discord. It's basically a space where we can share ideas. You can ask your questions, and that will be something that we look forward to as building a community as well. It'll be available on mobile and desktop, as James has just shown off. And yeah, any last words, boys?
Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel.
Oh, look at John.
I'm learning. I'm becoming a professional. And yeah, we'll be back next week with some more content as well. And obviously, we're getting pretty close to season start, so there'll be possibly even some team reveals and first drafts in the last week. People have been drafting since before the rules were out, but yeah, we'll be getting
prices
that soon as well. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys, for having me. I mean, we're recording this on launch day, so obviously I'm excited to see how the rest of the day is going to go. But yeah, thanks so much for having me, and I'll see you guys later.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, guys. Thank you all for listening. And yes, as Johnny said, help us with the channel. This is our third video, so like the video if you can, subscribe, share with your friends. Let people know about Solio Analytics. Not everyone has heard of it, but we hope that will change very soon. Thank you, everybody. See you next week.